Hello, Troy A. Shadowingtronics. Once again, taking part in the Soundoff challenge, and this time I've actually been asked a question. Not about comic stuff or storytelling, but about some of the video stuff I've done, specifically interviews. And one of the other Soundoff participants, Sophie Lawson, who actually did her whole her whole Art Soundoff all 30 days in one video. She did 30 seconds for each prompt, and I don't think it was long enough because I think she had a lot more she wanted to say on each of the topics. And but she actually asked me about specifically doing interviews, because this is something that I've done. It's something that she's considering doing, and she likes some advice how to do it from some advice on how to actually do it from someone who's actually done it. So, I don't know how much advice I can really give. But I think maybe best way to do it would be if I talked about how I got into adding interviews to the BW repertoire, as it were, and seeing if she can get some benefit out of that, or anyone else considering this. So, to understand how this all started, I need to go back to Kineticon 2009. It was my first Kineticon. I was curious to see if it was any good. I just heard about it, so I just gone on that Saturday. And I had a good time. If you've never been to Kineticon and you have the opportunity, do so, because it's not so much a convention. I haven't been there in a few years due to various factors. I haven't been there since 2016, and that was only because my cousin took me one day. Because of everything that had happened to me in 2016. But I haven't had a chance to be there since, so maybe things have changed. But Kineticon always seems more like a party than just a convention, because everybody's there having fun, it's cool costumes, and all that neat stuff. But as far as the interviews go, we go to at the time they had two different areas. You had the artist alley upstairs, and then downstairs in the dealer room there were a few people who were selling their self-published comics or books or a few other things. And I saw some really interesting stuff there, but overall I just had a good convention. So I went the next year that'd be 2010. And I got this little cheap camera. I still have it. I'm not sure where it is at the moment. But it's a little slick camera. It was not that great. The problem was that the microphone is on this side here. So it's great if you're doing commentary, doing the thing. But it's not really good for picking up sound out here, like when I'm doing interviews and stuff. So wasn't the best choice. I tried doing a few other videos with that thing, and that led to me getting my Canon Vixia, which I still have now. But I thought it might be interesting to interview these people for the site. And how I did it was really wasn't so much of an interview. It was more of a cut your own promo kind of thing. I set up my criteria. I was like, okay, so I would go up to people and say, hey, would you like to talk a bit about your work? And I said, yeah, sure. Now, some people didn't. Some people weren't comfortable on camera, and that's fine. You don't take their pictures if they don't want them taken. That goes for cosplayers too. In fact, I had one bit of footage. Some girl was doing a fun looking thing, and and I just picked it up all scanning around the corner. I wasn't just doing a walk around, just scanning around, recording all the stuff around me. And she comes to me and asked me if I would not leave that in the video, and so I took it out when I edited into the actual video. But there have been creators who asked not to be recorded. I think one person, we just did the audio and I just focused on the stuff, but for the most part, I didn't record anybody on camera that didn't want to be. So there were a few people that I didn't get interviews with. You got to respect that. So basically I said, okay, so I said, what do you want? So, well, tell us who you are, what you're working on, what it's about, who's your target audience, what age group is it appropriate for, and where can they find more about your stuff. And at some point sometimes during these interviews, they may say something that I'll catch and like, can you talk a bit more about this? There might be something a little more to explore there. And that was basically how I did those. Then I eventually got myself a press pass for Kineticon, which got me to the press junket. And I've gotten to interview quite a few celebrities, from Jim Cummings to Maria Surtees. And in that case, because it was a press junket, it was me and a bunch of other people asking questions. So with each person that I knew I wanted to say something, I wanted to ask questions for, I would take and just write down a bunch of questions. And I figured maybe I'd ask one or two, maybe three. Maria Surtees, of course, was Counselor Troy in Star Trek Next Generation, and Nimona from Gargoyles. I got to ask 2 questions. That one, a whole bunch of other press people came in just for that interview, and then they left. And they stood in front of those of us who had been standing there, all day in that room asking questions of all the other celebrities that were there. But because they weren't big enough, they weren't bothered with by these people. And I think that was kind of rude, because these people, some of them are internet famous, some of them are authors in a niche circle, but still pretty famous. No, wait, I don't think we had any authors that year. We may have had some other actors that weren't as big, but I have to look up to remember this, because we had 2 years in this one room, and then they moved it to another room for the rest of the time that I had press pass. That was basically it. I had my questions ready for what I wanted, and for each situation. Now, when it comes to the one-on-one interviews, I talked to Larry Kenney, who was the voice of Lion-O at Thundercats, and I was totally unprepared for that. So it was basically just a point of, here are questions I would ask that I wanted to know personally. And, you put the owner in, like, how did you get started in this career and everything? And then we just kind of had a conversation. And I would ask questions, and they would answer them. I think I took up a little too much of his time. I don't think he was happy about that. So, kind of be mindful about that, because they are there to talk to other people. With other people like Frank McLaughlin was still very much a conversation. Hang on. Spam call. Don't worry about it. Just has to call at the wrong time, of course. But so that was kind of unsurprised for it. But basically, when I do one-on-one interviews, I know we're talking about a particular topic, like the subject. What are they famous for, or what project are they promoting at the time? So I ask questions about that, but I kind of just have a conversation with them. It's like we talk about their work, and we talk about their history, and we talk. It's really just questions about the career. I don't ask any personal questions. I try not to be antagonistic. Some people are because I don't do those kind of questions. It's basically just my interviews have been more like promotional stuff. Like they did something interesting. Let me let my audience in on that. For example, with Ron Mars, who wrote Green Lantern, he's the one who did the infamous tale where Alexander DeWitt was killed. And, I could have gotten on his case about that, because that does still bug me, because I thought she was a great character. It was part of the relationship between her and Kyle that allowed me to accept it, that helped for me to accept him as the new Green Lantern. And I wanted to see more of their connection, of their working off each other and everything. And we didn't get that because she was killed off. I could have gotten on his case about that. I didn't, because I don't want to ruin their fun. It's, these interviews I've done at conventions or Free Comic Book Day. One of the Billy Tucci interviews was just him promoting his book, and I don't want to get on these guys' case. I don't want to ruin their day. I'm not a reporter. I'm a reviewer and commentator. I've tried getting jobs with the press. That didn't work out. But I do reviews and commentary. I don't do the news. So I don't, I'm not going to sit there and antagonize these guys. I'm not going to softball it, but I'm not hardball either. I'm kind of middle of the road. But some people like to throw hardball questions because they want to get answers. In some circumstances, that's a good thing. I've never been in those circumstances. Well, basically, it's, that would be my advice. Make sure you got your questions ready beforehand. Don't be antagonistic. Keep it like a conversation. Give them a chance to promote their stuff or talk about the things about them that you're interested in, about their stories or their acting or their web channel or whatever it is that you're going to be interviewing about, and just make it fun for everybody. If you're looking to do somebody just to do an attack piece, then you're doing it wrong. If you're doing it just to be a mouthpiece, you're doing it wrong. If you're choosing to interview somebody and you're not actually doing a news story, you're basically there because this is somebody whose work you admire or whose perspective you like, or maybe you're talking about a shared topic. One of the projects that I would love to do is kind of a roundtable discussion, like not a weekly thing or anything, just every now and then. It's like, I have a topic, let me find a few people and do a roundtable discussion about it. Not even like the same people, just like me and a rotating cast for the roundtable. And I would love to do something like that. But, for me, and the way I do things on my site, is I want to keep it fun. I want to keep it interesting. Interesting for me, interesting for the audience, interesting for the person being interviewed. And I make sure I have at least some questions handy, but also be prepared during the point of the conversation. Maybe one of those questions ends up getting answered, or maybe something clicks like, oh, really? I'd like to know more about that. Would you? And then you say, can you tell me a bit more about that? And just be open to that stuff. As far as approaching people, I've mostly had captive audiences, so they're sitting there at a table, but I'll go up to them and I'll ask them if they have a moment when they mind doing an interview. And I've gotten some good interviews that way. I've had people say no. I once tried to get an interview with, who was it? I think John Wesley Shipp. I think he was at a Comic Con, which is a whole, going to the naming of Comic Con is just a whole conversation. It's Terrific Con now. Then Hartford Comic Con took over Comic Con, and I don't know if they're still doing it. It's all very confusing. But I was at the event, and I think it was either John Wesley Shipp or William Katt. I don't remember which. And that's what I was told, at least for those celebrities, I actually should have called in advance and gotten permission to interview them at the event, which is, I guess, what somebody else was doing when I got there. So it kind of depends. If you're going to do something in an event, maybe contact them in advance and see if they'd be up to doing an interview. Maybe they don't want to for one reason or another, and work at it that way. At other events, you can go and say, do you mind if I do a quick interview? Just remember that at a convention, they are there to talk to their fans, not necessarily there to talk to you. And like I said, that's where I screwed up with Larry Kenny. So try to just be aware of that. Be considerate. Don't do a hit piece. Don't look to be a mouthpiece. Just go there because it's somebody you're interested in and you want to talk about their craft. And remember, you're not doing a talk show, so it's not about you. Something may come up that maybe you relate to, and you may ask them. That may lead to some interesting questions between you guys. And for the most part, don't be a slave to the questions, but have some ready as kind of a starting point, and then let the conversation and the interview go where it needs to. And you might learn something interesting. I have, and you may even make a friend or two out of it. Who knows? So that's pretty much my whole story. That's about all I can say about interviews. Make sure you got everybody's on the technical side. Make sure you have decent equipment. I need to get a microphone that I can take with me to conventions and stuff because the one I had broke. This is actually a microphone for a karaoke machine, and I have to use a plug to connect from mono to stereo, so that you're hearing this in stereo sound. But it must be on there a bit loose because that doesn't work on the computer. The computer goes nuts when I try to use that. So I need to get something that I can do for those situations. But get decent. You don't have to get like the biggest expensive camera. Just a decent camera or a decent recorder if you're just doing audio. Even cell phones now have decent audio recording. My cell phone that I have is a cheap cell phone. I got it for free because they changed the G service, and don't even ask me to understand that. I looked up a thing last night on 5G and I still don't understand. But it has a decent microphone to it, so you can record an interview on that. Or if you're going to get a camera, get an external microphone. Trust me, even this thing here is worth it. Get a decent external microphone. Get something stereo, and something that's easy to carry around with you. I have a heavy tripod that I'm using now that I got from my uncle. I have a light tripod that I bring to events, and that's going to make things easier for you as well. So that's really all the interview advice I can give. Just make sure everybody's having fun. Make sure you're having fun with it. Make sure your interviewer's enjoying himself, and make sure the audience enjoys it in the end. Have some decent equipment. Have some questions ready. Be prepared to go off the script, as it were, based on how the interview goes and the things you learn. And as far as approaching people, you've got to kind of judge if it's somebody you can approach. And if they say no, then no. Then the answer is no. If they say yes, then try to arrange a decent time to do it. That's all the advice I got. You can check out, if you're watching this here on YouTube, or on my website, you can use the sidebar. You can look up BW Chats, BW Goes To. Those are the two interview shows that I've done. The Goes To was the short promo thing I was talking about. BW Chats are more one-on-one videos, full interviews, and let's see, I'm going to say something else. No, I wasn't going to say anything else. Okay, that was all I had to say. So check those out. And if you want to check out more of my writing stuff and the articles and comics that I do, in addition to videos, especially now with all the COPPA concerns, the best way to find out if I put something else out in video form may actually be going to bwspotlight.com. There is an RSS feed. There is a way to sign up by email. And if you're on WordPress, you can follow that way and use the WordPress reader. And if you want to find out what everybody else is talking about Art Soundoff, including Sophie Lawson's, I will post a link down there, and I probably put one in the card. So check out her. You can check her 30 prompts in 30 minutes video. And if you want to check out what everybody else is doing in Art Soundoff, head to Twitter and look for the Art Soundoff hashtag. Or if you think you might want to take part, go to artsoundoff.com. And again, find me at bwspotlight.com. So until then, a little over time today, but hopefully you found it useful. And this should be going up on Thursday, so there should be one more tomorrow. And until then, I wish you all happy creating.